YouTube, this is RL coming to you again from my channel, and welcome back to another installment of Retro Life, where we review video games from the 1980s and 1990s. And once again, here's my co-host, CK.
What's up again, everybody?
So once again, we will be reviewing everything in a like, love, and loathe scale. So we review graphics, music, sound effects, gameplay, controls, difficulty, fun factor, and story. And in this episode, we are going to review the classic game, the non-classic game I should say, Back to the Future for the NES. So here's my co-host CK on a little description of this game.
Back to the Future was released in 1989 by the famous, or I guess this infamous company, LJN. They've done a lot of games that incorporated movie to video game adaptations, I guess is what their forte was back in the late 80s, early 90s. The game is loosely based on the film.
Yes, so let's get started on Back to the Future for the NES. So what did you think of the graphics of this game?
Should I be nice?
There is no need to be nice.
The graphics are basic. The game feels a little sharper than Skater Die. Those were kind of older games that were very heavily pixelated, very huge blocky colors. It still kind of has that feel. The first time I played this, the first game that came to mind was Paperboy. It plays a lot like Paperboy, and it has that same bright, blocky type colors that aren't really reminiscent of real, like real textures or real colors. And the gameplay itself is basic. I give it a retro half-like. And the only reason why I give it a half-like is because they still kind of execute on what games were back then. I mean, if you look at games on the NES back in 1987, 88, 89, they weren't anything spectacular. And unless a company had a really good graphics team on board, then, you got really cool games with simple but depth. This game has no depth to it.
Right.
The graphics are pretty flat. It's so basic. The color palette is almost atrocious. I don't want to say it's terrible, but it's pretty bad. Like, it's hard on the eyes. It doesn't give you the feeling of playing a movie, feeling of playing a pastel drawing. It gets a half-like for me. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not good enough.
For me, the graphics, most games from that era look pretty similar. It's just not inspired. It's a game that's very lazily done. I don't know the history of this game, if they were rushed, if they didn't know what they were doing, or they didn't have enough time, or they just didn't give a damn, because this is probably one of those games, along with E.T., that gets a bad rap. Not as famous as E.T., that debacle, but that game, they gave the guy, 6 weeks to do the game? I don't know how anyone could finish the game in that. Even then at the Atari age, when it was simplistic coding probably, but simplistic to what we have today, I don't think 6 weeks or whatever time they gave, less than 2 months, is significant a time to create a decent product. And this game, I don't know the excuse they had. I'm hoping they had a good one, because it's garbage. But the graphics, they're very bland. You said the color palette is 2 colors? 3 colors max. I don't even remember seeing grays and greens, and I think a couple of pinks. There's a character coming to you, I guess it's Biff, and he's got a pink shirt on, and there's a girl in a hula hoop.
That's right.
Doing I think she's pink as well, and there's clocks, but there's not much color there, so it just looks bland. I would say it's a half-like. I don't want to say a loathe, because I'm saving it for later. For the era, it's decent. It's just done in a way that shows it didn't give a damn.
Agreed. So half-like it is.
So moving on, what did you think of the music in this game, CK?
The 32 bars of, repetitive. It's grinding. There's nothing different. Every level's the same, and every section is the same. Again, 36 bars, loop, loop, loop.
Right.
Did they even attempt put anything else? Again, like you said, I'm hoping it's a really good excuse. It looks like it was developed in 2 weeks.
I think they developed it in a day, to be honest.
So the music, the music gets no love from me. The music is definitely a retro loathe.
Oh yeah, that's our first retro loathe of our series, and it's well deserved. The music is disgusting. I don't even consider it music. It doesn't even remind me of Back to the Future. Did they have the license to Back to the Future? The Back to the Future logo is there. So I'm assuming they would have the license to the music to be able to try to encapsulate some element. Because Back to the Future has amazing music in it. It is iconic. Huey Lewis and the News. There's no excuse to have one track, not even a track, like a half a track that they squeezed in there, and they couldn't even mix it up. This game is the most lazy game. They were sleeping in doing this game. I think this game makes E.T. a classic. This is a double retro loathe for music for me. Yes, it's just god-awful. I was playing it, and my ears felt like they were going to just leave me. The music is terrible. It's a double retro loathe for me.
Oh, well, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I'm just saying how I feel. So, moving on. Let's move on to gameplay, CK. What did you think of the gameplay in Back to the Future for NES?
The gameplay. It is lacking in variety. And again, that generation of games, as we had said, Nintendo's first gen games published for the console, anything between 86 and maybe 89, 90 were a lot the same. Again, when I said right from the beginning it felt like Paperboy, it really does. And I love Paperboy. I love the skill required and the little bits of challenge because it is kind of set, but also a bit random and it's weird. And this game also has that feature. So for me, the gameplay itself wasn't terrible. It was having to do the same level 3 times in a row to get to the actual gameplay and the story, because all you're doing is just running and collecting clocks. Spoiler alert, you're running around collecting clocks so your parents don't fade away, then you don't die. So you play 3 of the road running stages, collecting clocks, trying to avoid Hula Hoop Girl and Biff.
And the Biff, apparently.
It's like a mouse run or a maze type of thing where you're just running through these closed corridors and there's obstacles. Oh, Gladiator. Kind of like, the Gladiator games that we used to watch on TV back in the 90s. You're running through a narrow corridor, you only have a fixed amount of room, and there's obstacles in front of you. Collect a clock, don't get hit. And I think, quite frankly, they had you play that, running up the road, collecting clocks thing 3 times in a row, because they had to pad the game. It's like a 22-minute game. End to end, easily less than 30 minutes. So the monotonous of that made it kind of annoying. The controls are kind of neat because you can run back and forth and it's a scrolling level. So the level auto scrolls up and you can control yourself within the scrolling. So I'm thankful for that. At least you can, move back and forth and you can run forward and you can jump and you can collect items and throw bowling balls, collect a skateboard. So they did a little more than just Paperboy. Paperboy, you ride your bike, you throw a paper, that's basically it, right? So I gotta give it a retro half-like. It's not a loathe because I didn't hate it. The only part that I didn't like is that it was monotonous. And I think it grinds their gears over and over, the same thing. So retro half-like for me. I don't loathe the gameplay. I get what they were going for.
I think that's very generous of you.
It's not terrible, but it's definitely not good.
So for me, I found the gameplay to be repetitive, as you said. There's 3 different types of gameplay in this. There's the moving around, going up, collecting clocks, and then eventually getting a skateboard and avoiding Biff in a pink shirt and some guys with glass they're holding. They can't decide which way to go. They're the worst movers I've ever seen. And then there's a diner where he throws stuff at these guys. It's the largest diner I've ever seen with this massive gap in there. It looks like a freaking gym.
Yeah. It's true.
And then there's another gameplay where you're blocking hearts from your mom. Brilliant. That is so brilliant. It looks like he's grabbing the hearts.
Yeah, at first I thought it was you're collecting them, but...
Wouldn't it be smarter to have the hearts deflect off and bounce away?
Yes, it would. He's absorbing the hearts. Yes, that's what I thought it was at first. Don't want her to fall in love with you. And then when I kind of was playing the level and I realized, oh, that's what it meant. I think he's blocking the heart.
And then there's a level where he's catching notes. So you gotta move the guitar to catch the notes, and then that makes sense. It's almost like a precursor to Guitar Hero. Maybe they got inspired by this game because nobody else has.
I doubt it.
The gameplay is nothing special, is just a bore. I just imagine playing this as a kid and just opening it up and just having your heart stomped on.
Yes.
The gameplay gets a retro loathe for me. Not a double loathe, just a retro loathe.
Understood.
I feel they could have done a much better job. I feel they could have come up with something a lot more creative, but they didn't really give a damn. And this is what the game screams of. It's like, we didn't give a damn. We made this game in our basement. Moving on. So what did you think about the controls in this game?
The game controls are tight, and I'll give it that. And that's the only thing I will give this game a retro-like for.
Tight controls. Yeah,
tight controls. That's it. I got nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say. It's the controls are good for the game.
I understand what you're saying. And playing this game, the controls were not the issue. It's just the level design, the graphics, the music. Everything plays a part. And it just makes you not really feel enjoyment playing a game like this. Yes, I'll give the controls some credit. They're not loosey-goosey, but luckily in this game you don't have to make jumps. It's not a platformer, so the controls don't necessarily need to be tight to make it a good game, but the gameplay needs to be better to make it a good game. Correct. I would have taken better gameplay with looser controls than a tight controlled game with terrible bullshit gameplay, you know? If you know what I'm trying to say.
Know what you're saying, yes.
So the controls are the best thing in this game. That isn't saying very much. I will give the controls a half like, because I really don't want to give it a like, because I really don't feel like there's much to do in the game to make the controls even relevant. You're moving around, you're swerving, you're trying to avoid bees, you're trying to avoid Biff, you're trying to avoid the worst movers to moving glass in the history of glass moving. You're on a track. Why do you have to be on a track? That's the one thing that pissed me off about the game the most, is that you could never stop moving.
The only moving levels are the ones that you play the most, and unfortunately they are the ones that ruin the freaking game. I'm used to the shoot-'em-up games with airplanes, jets, all those type of things, and having tight controls really help, but also having really good gameplay really helps. This game doesn't have it. The only thing that made me continue playing this game beyond the first 2 minutes is because I wanted to figure out what was next.
I hear you. I only played this game because I had to, and we had to make a review, and I will never touch it again after this review, so I'm just... Yeah, I'll just watch the movie. What else is there to say about controls? You give it a like, and I give it a half like. Let's move on. So moving on, difficulty. So how did you find the difficulty in this game?
The game itself, as per, the running up the street collecting clocks, is not a difficult task at all, quite frankly. And because, again, of the tight controls, it's easy to maneuver, which means if you fail, ultimately it is your problem. The difficulty came with the time given to do the task, because I believe when you're running, if you're not collecting the clock, your parents' time fade, but there's also a master clock that is a countdown for you to get to the next intersection. So you're managing these two things at the same time, so you can't just run through the level. So there's no speed run, not pick up anything. You have to pick up anything. You have to pick up something. You have to put yourself in danger, all for the sake of getting to the next stage, which is the same thing over. And then the next stage, which is, again, the same thing over. The difficulty kind of gets to a point, and then it just caps off. It's not a difficult game by any means. I think I said this earlier, that the game probably plays in under 30 minutes. So at the time, for a 6 to 8 year old on a Nintendo, in their living room,
2 days.
It might, yeah, pretty much. Like you played over a weekend, and you'll probably die a bunch of times, but you probably clear the game in a weekend. It is not a difficult game at all.
If you have no other games to play and you have nothing else to do with your time, sure.
The difficulty gets a retro load, and that's only because I didn't see the point in using time, the passing of time, as a difficulty meter, as opposed to increasing difficulty in things on the stage. The obstacles are tighter, but it's not to say it's any more difficult because the obstacles are tighter. You can blow through this without losing a life. It doesn't really have a difficulty. It's just time spent, which is your patience.
So therefore, it should be a double loaf. So anyway.
So it gets a retro loathe from me.
So moving on, I don't even want to get into it. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm going to talk about it. So difficulty for me, the game's difficulty, as you said, it's not the most difficult game, but the gameplay sucks and the music sucks and everything puts it together, makes it even a more difficult game because you're confused. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Why am I playing this game? Why did the developers make this game? Why do they want to torture me? So all those things are going through my mind, and I just can't focus on this game, and it makes it even more difficult for me. Difficulty is average. It's not not insane. There's a lot harder games on the Nintendo, and the original Nintendo is known for a lot of difficult games. There's a lot of difficult games on that system. But most games on the NES, freaking ass-kicking hard, you know? This game is not ass-kicking hard, but it kicks you in other ways. So difficulty gets a loaf because the game just deserves it. So moving on. I can't even say it. What's the fun factor of this game, CK?
Good question. It's a
great question.
Fun factor.
Yeah. If you give it a retro love, I'm going to hang up the phone.
No. By all means. Again, back to everything that you said. What is there really to like about the game? Now, you can pick pieces out, and like I said, tight controls, music breaks it, and it's just a back and forth mishmash of stuff. The time it takes to clear it, the lack of difficulty. There's no fun. And I'm just going to be straight up and say it's a retro loathe. I don't hate it, but I will never play it again. Let's just say that. I'll never play it again.
We both will never play this game again. Surprised you gave it a loathe. I thought you would give it a double loathe at this point.
No. I got to be very passionate about disliking something.
Yes.
I dislike the game, but I don't hate the game.
I would love to meet the game that you would give a double loathe to if this game is not on the double loathe list. Fun factors. This game, where do I start? The game is the Antichrist.
Oh my gosh. You went that far.
This game tried to kill my childhood. I never played it as a kid, thank God. There is no fun factor. This game is anti-fun. Anytime you think that there might be some fun, you're reminded of the music. Every time you think there might be fun, you're reminded of the gameplay. Every time the game might be fun, there's just too much bogging it down. This game looks like they had a board meeting for 2 seconds and put it out the next day. That I don't respect. The game gets a triple... No, joking. It is a double loaf. No fun factor to be had. No. So, there is no story, I believe, in this game.
For the game, no.
No story to be had in this game.
None. I think they literally just were like, let's get this game finished. Last level, we're not even going to bother putting in any mechanic in. Just drive a car, don't let lightning hit you. Near the end, accelerate. That's it.
They had to do something where the game has some level of resemblance to an actual Back to the Future game.
That's right. That's the iconic part of the movie. The DeLorean, with the flaming tires, transporting out of that time into wherever it ends up going. And they decided, okay, well, that's what we're going to end it on. And they went out on what they considered a high note. They just went out. All right, guys, let's break for lunch. Game done. Send it to the publisher.
Yeah, too bad the publisher was open. Thank you for being here. It was always nice to have you.
It's always nice being here. It's always nice to give my point of view and to share my experience. Though our experiences vary, I believe we both have an important story to tell when it comes to these retro games. They truly do talk to a certain audience. I believe that LJN were popular for creating movie-to-game adaptations, and if this is any testament to what they can do, God, I can't wait to review a few more.
Oh God, no. Please, no. We have space it out once every 2 millenniums.
True. We'll space it out. I don't mind it, but I'd definitely love to cover another LGN game, terrible movie-to-game adaptation for the NES.
I think once every 2 months we'll do a retro loathing review of LGN, all the LGN games. Anyway, so that's all for now. This game made me want to give up gaming, but thank you for coming in, and it's always fun to have you, remotely, of course.
It's always fun to be here, and thank you for sharing a terrible experience with me.
Well, I wouldn't call it that terrible. It's not like we had to play the game. Oh, wait. So that's all for now, and I will have more videos in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.
Take it easy, folks.